Good afternoon, Sam here in the Reloved Guitars workshop, and big pile of things to do this week, but for now what I want to do is just give a quick update on the Sunn Mustang ancient Stratocaster style guitar, licensed by Fender to be produced in India in the 1980s. So here's the body. I've done some repair work on the cracks and basically kind of dug them out, filled them back in. So I've glued wherever I can, pulled the wood apart and glued it to make it stronger, and then put back together, sort of dug some trenches where the cracks were, filled them in, and basically done quite a bit of painting into these horns of the guitar. And at the moment it's still in sort of mid-sanding. Now the repair is not even the same colour exactly as the original, but it's close enough to make it look better than it did when it was just a great big yawning set of cracks. So I'm kind of pleased with it, because not because I'm aiming to sell this. Oh, by the way, there was a huge crack on it, a piece missing, and I'm slowly filling that in. It's nearly there. It's a little bit dimpled. Still a couple of extra bits to build up, but yeah, it's not a guitar I'm planning to sell. It's actually a guitar I'm planning to repair and play. So having just put back the scratch plate today, just to have a sort of look and feel of it, it's a really nice guitar. I'm so looking forward to getting this finished. I will take the scratch plate off again just to finish off with the bodywork. I'm not going to try to make it perfect. My objective was to make the cracks on the neck strong, so that I didn't have to play it with the neck kind of creaking and cracking from side to side. And if I can make it just look a little bit more loved, I think it's got a lovely antique, well, it is an antique, it's an antique creamy white, and even with my repair, which doesn't quite match the colour, and it certainly doesn't match the metallic sparkle that's built into the original, if I can just get it looking kind of comfortably nice like that at a glance, then I'll be really happy. I feel like quite positive that I'm some of the way there. And then with the neck, what I've done is I basically got it ready for a fret treatment, which I'm going to do now. But I've also strengthened up, not perfectly. Again, this is just making it work for me. I've just put some thickening layers of lacquer on top of this neck, because believe it or not, this really nice gold flake logo was starting to come off very easily. So I've kind of arrested its decay by just layering some thick lacquer on here. And it is not perfect, it's not absolutely dead smooth, but it is nice and shiny, and it's much thicker, and it still retains that really nice yellow antique feel. The rest of the neck here is really nice condition. It's got these wonderful jumbo frets on a rosewood fingerboard. So that's my task today, because actually I'm quite happy to blast on with this and get it done. I've had this lacquer sitting here, I think, for about a week, or did I do something the other day? I can't remember. But it's sort of just about old enough to go ahead with the shining, but I will do it with wet and dry, and then I'll go over with the final scratch remover, just to bring as much of a shine back. But it has a real nice feel to it. There's so much mixed views online about this guitar. There are two kind of versions. One is the later 80s, possibly 90s actually, version of this guitar, which I'll just drill these tiny holes a minute. No, I won't. Yeah, one's a later version of this guitar, and it's nowhere near as well liked. Come on, you guys. Charge up. Why aren't these batteries charging? Nowhere near as well liked as the early version, which I've got here, which is the Indian version. And this version has a really nice antique feel to it. What I'm doing here is I'm just doing a slight drill in some, basically some hard as nails. That all the holes on this body were ragged and knackered, basically. So what I've done is I've filled the holes with a bit of hard as nails or some such. And what that's done is just give me a bit of a grip for the screws to go back in when they go back in. you know, again, this is not sort of a permanent fix. You might want to, in the real world, if it was really that bad and you wanted this, if this was a vintage guitar, you'd probably go on and put fill the holes with bits of hardwood and drill out a proper new seating hole for the screws. But you know, this is a playing guitar, not a you know, an antique selling guitar really. But yeah, together we've got a really nice antique looking thing. Now at the moment this has got a bit of masking tape on it, so it is not a very accurate representation of how this neck will fit in. But because of the masking tape right now, it fits pretty snugly, and providing I can get this bolted into place and it seats comfortably, and it doesn't do too much in the way of creaking side to side because of the repair to the neck, sorry, to the heel, then that's going to be a very nice guitar to own and play, and that's the intention of this one. So I'm not going to push this neck in there anymore for the time being, but I am going to get on and work on it now. So this is going to be one of those probably very boring videos if you've seen this process before, because it's nothing but hard work and blood, sweat and toil, or something like that, which is what Churchill promised, wasn't it? So I basically just hung the body up, left it dangling there, ready for a bit more work on it. So if we work on the neck now, all that's going to happen is that I'll put that aside once we've done it. And we'll come back to it once we finish the polishing on the body, and then it'll be all systems go. So what have we got here? We've got a really nice antique neck, nice fingerboard. What have we got in terms of straightness? I think I had a good look at this before, but it's not from the fact that this paper's getting in the way. Get out of the way. Right, so we are pretty straight just to begin with. I'm comfortable with that. There's a tiny bit of a twist in this neck, I would say, very minor. Nothing that would stop it playing. So I'm just going to work on it as is. So this is a fret leveling job, followed by polishing, and then a final shine. So what I'm going to do with this neck, which I do with all of them, but isn't strictly necessary, particularly if you're going to use a fret file to level the frets, you could, as long as the neck now is straight, we could literally just go ahead and do it now. We wouldn't need to do this checking part, but I'm doing the checking part because I have my fret leaderboard of shame, and I'm just building up a kind of a fun little record of which are the worst and the best necks in the business. And so far, I know you won't be able to see too well, but so far down the bottom, the worst neck that I've come across, the worst frets, is this this Ace Pro SG copy, which is now looking a lot nicer because I've managed to shine out all the repairs. So that's heading to be finished, and the neck is done, so I've levelled all the frets, but it began with 80% of the frets being uneven, which is astonishingly high. Next worst, actually, was really surprising. It was the Ibanez RG series, a very expensive, top of the range player's guitar. That came in at 70% uneven. And we go back then into a kind of cluster of Squires, from the Korean Telecaster down here, this red one here, down through a number of, a couple of Squire Affinity Strats, then a no-name Les Paul copy. Top of the good boys list is the vintage V100 Les Paul, which was a surprisingly low, actually I put it as 15, it's probably more like 20%, followed by the Jackson SDX, I think it is, Adrian Smith Super Strat thing, and that was 40%. So let's see where this knackered ancient old Sunn Mustang comes in at. And as usual, what I'll do is I'll mark off wherever we find uneven frets. I'll mark them so that we can see. So let's just fire away on this. So the technique is we use a straight edge, but it doesn't have to be, believe it or not, it doesn't have to be a piece of metal. You can actually use a credit card, it will do the same thing. In fact, credit card will amazingly still cover 3 frets, which is what it needs to be able to do. if you were going to use a credit card, you'd want to get another straight edge and cut it so that you end up with one long one, which will be your long edge there. And if you can, you probably find a design online, but you want to get yourself as close as you can to these other lengths. And in fact, you might get away with that one. And then, anyway, the point is you can get a credit card, and if you're careful, you can cut it to the right shape. You can actually get away with a credit card, I think, all the way to the end, as long as you're careful. So I run out, I've got to stop there on that fret. Which fret is that one? It's that one. So for the next fret, I can switch to this one, and that actually lasts me nearly to the end, so I'd need one more size on this. Just a little guide. Anyway, I bought this because it's kind of easy and permanent. So what we do is we make sure that we're checking the middle fret in relation to the frets either side, and if you put the fret rocker over the 3 frets, and if you are able to rock it from side to side and get a clicking noise, that means either the middle fret is high or one or both of the other frets are low. But for the time being, we're just going to measure it. We're going to assume that one of the frets is high. Not always the case, but we have to assume one thing or another. So I'm just going to start by making a mark on the masking tape, which corresponds to where that fret is slightly high. And you'll very quickly find that it doesn't happen. You won't find it all the way along frets. It's usually, sometimes it's all the way, but very often it's just in certain spots. And sometimes you'll notice that the apparent high spots are in relation to the apparent high spots. They have a kind of relation to the apparent high spots on the previous one, which sometimes can tell you. I don't know what it can tell you. I've yet to try and work it out. It's a bit of a mind blast. But this is way high. You can hear that noise, and you can feel it. That fret is so high. Now, you might be asking, if you haven't seen this job done before, you might be wondering, why am I doing this at all? So what's wrong with high frets? I mean, this guitar played before I took it apart. It seemed to play okay. I spent a couple of hours playing some blues or something, and it was quite good fun. So what's wrong with having this high fret? Well, the high fret comes into play, what a high fret will do is it will stick up in the way of your string when you're fretting another note. And because the clearances are so tiny, when you fret a note or string here, the clearance between that and the next few strings is very, very small. If you're pressing the string down here, it's fretting on this fret here, and then this fret here is really high, what you'll find is that this fret touches the string, so even though you're playing it here, it'll play off this note, or at best it will buzz because it's hitting this fret here. So what's wrong with that? Well, first of all, if you left it like that, you'd have buzzes and you'd actually have duplicating notes, choked off notes and duplicating notes, which would make it impossible to play, really. But often you don't very often find that when you get a guitar second hand. It plays, because what somebody's done is that the way of overcoming that, the simplest way, is to raise the action down at this end. And that raises the gap down here just enough so that the string will clear this high fret. And people, when you get a second-hand guitar, you can pretty much guarantee that you've got it with the action set at a level that's the minimum it can go without hitting problem frets. And that's typically what happens with the guitar. The owners will try to get it low, but they will have to go back up to as low as they can get it without causing buzzes or choked notes or repeating notes. So you can see that the evenness of your frets pretty much then dictates how low you can possibly go. So if you want some options in that, and you want to take it lower and have a easier to play guitar, i.e. you don't have an action of a centimetre at the 12th fret, then you will need to take down these, take off the uneven high spots, or render all of this level in relation to each fret, relation to the others. Once you've done that, with a perfectly level fretboard, you can then bring your action down here, very, very low indeed, in fact to where you want it, not where the frets dictate you've got to have it. Okay, so that's why we do it. It sounds a load of kind of theoretical claptrap in some ways, and it's one of those things that you could watch this video all day and hear me saying that all day, but it won't mean anything to you until the time that you either pick up a guitar like this one that's have the frets, that will have had the frets leveled, and play it, and then compare it to your experience of playing maybe your guitar which hasn't had the frets leveled. And it's only when you play one after the other, or you're used to playing one and then you play this one, that's when you'll notice the difference. And once you've noticed the difference, or kind of once it makes sense to you, it's one of those things that you'll want to do every time after that. There's no reason on earth why you'd want to leave frets uneven, especially with a really high one like that one there, which is absolutely going to significantly, that one alone, where is it there, I can guarantee that will force the action slightly higher to make it playable. So so basically people think that the only thing that dictates action is where you set the bridge, the saddles, the action on the saddles. And of course it is, for a user or an owner of the guitar. It's the only way you probably know, it's the most obvious way, to adjust the action. But you'll be doing it according to the limitations of what the frets allow you to do. And the more uneven they are, the less option or less freedom you've got to set it. Wow, there's another one here, look. Yeah, so the more uneven, the less choice you've got in the matter. You'll just be you'll be forced to set the action really high to overcome the inherent limitations of the frets. And so that's the fun part. For me, I owned a guitar for 30 years. I think about 30 years, my Squire Strat. And in all that time, I never took it to anyone to be set up, and I never did it myself. And you might think, well, why is that? Why wouldn't you do that? And the reason I didn't do it is because I didn't know what it benefited me. I had no sort of tangible sense of what it would be like afterwards. And then, unless you have that tangible sense, it's sort of academic. You don't really, you're not motivated to spend the money. You know, you could go on forums or read in magazines, as was around when I was a younger man. You know, and you could go to music shops and you'd hear the guitarists talking about this thing called getting a good setup, but nothing could make sense of it other than getting your hands on a guitar that had been well set up. And in my lifetime, that never really happened. I mean, I remember guitars from when I was in school, and one particular friend of mine, or he was a friend who's a year younger than me in the school, a guy named John O'Sullivan, who still plays in a couple of bands now in London. But he had an Antoria SG copy. You know, an Antoria, even in the late 70s, early 80s, was a kind of cheap Japanese copy. I mean, it was obviously a copy. It was not the original. It was not an SG original. But John's Antoria copy, all of us who played in other bands in the school were in awe of this guitar. Not only because he was able to play it better than anyone else, but when we sort of got hands on it backstage or after the gig or whatever, us little sided up schoolboys, always remember just the unbelievable action on this guitar compared to what I had and the other ones I'd experienced. And of course it wasn't that difficult, because in those days I had a Satellite, I think it's called a 65T, and you still see a lot of them on eBay, and it was an absolutely god-awful plywood Japanese toy of a guitar. It was only 3/4 size, but and of course that thing had just the most rubbish action in the world, so that John's guitar was just like an unbelievable dream. But even though I knew it was a fantastically set up guitar, I had no idea that I could do anything to my guitar to make it like that, and I just assumed that my guitar was so absolutely rubbish that it was only good for pulling the neck off and burying it in the woods near my house, which is what I did in sheer frustration. And I think I did that without even having another guitar to play on, so I think that was kind of almost the end. Oh no, actually that's not true, I had an acoustic. I bought a new acoustic, but it was so bad that it was just worth throwing away. So even though I knew there were beautifully set up guitars and crap set up guitars, I didn't really know how I didn't know what I could have done, or certainly didn't know what was possible. Even when I got my own Squier JV Squier Strat, and all those years I had it, just didn't understand what a setup was and how I would benefit or not. So the beauty of this job here is that this job gives you back gives you a wonderful playing action if you want it, and combined with working on the nut as well are the two things for me that really open up the possibilities of how your guitar can be set up, and that's why I spend so much time doing this, both on my own guitars like this one and also on guitars that I'll be selling. And the beauty is when you see somebody, as I did, I think it was last week, I took Megan's Les Paul copy back to her dad in London and handed it over, and he knew how the old untreated guitar played, and he was just amazed, you know, and that's such a payoff to see somebody who gets their hands on their guitar and recognises it but just feels it's vastly improved by doing something that isn't rocket science, but it does require some, I guess, an understanding of what you can gain from it and some hard work. Okay, so how many frets have we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21 frets. Minus the 2 there leaves us 19, which makes very hard computation. 19, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 out of 19. Sunn Mustang. Anyone want to do a quick bit of maths? 16 out of 19. Naughty. Well, if it was 16 out of 20, let's say, it would be 80%, right? But it's a bit more than that. So to be absolutely honest about it, it's 16 out of 19. I think we're going to, so a tenth of that would be 1.6. Tenth, that would be 1.9. Well, I haven't got my calculator, so I'm going to guess that. I'm going to call it 83% for good measure, which is a new all-time low on the leaderboard. So I'm just going to take this off for the time being. We'll readjust it. But welcome, Sunn Mustang, to the ranks of the all-time low scores. Sunn. So it's FMIC. No, IC. Yes. Fender Musical Instrument Corporation. Sunn Mustang. Made in India in the 80s. I'm going to put 80s here, and the percentage is a ghastly 83%, and some of them really, really high. So brilliant. We have a new leader. Leader isn't quite the right word, but we'll stick it off the end of here. We know we've got to update the new leaderboard of shame. Right, now before I do any more on this, I'm just going to do a quick drawing, because I always do this somewhere along the way and never have the paper and get it, make a mess of it. So what are we doing? We are stages of the exercise here. So let's try and do something to scale, not to scale, but something. I'm going to draw a fretboard. Let's call fret. Actually, it's too big a pen. Is it too big? Let's use this one. Sorry. Boggle waggle. Right, so we have there's the neck of our guitar. Okay, and we're going to have, this is not to scale obviously, but let's imagine we've got some frets. This is really not at all to scale. So imagine we've got frets going and looking across the neck, frets going up the fretboard, and let's say we've got one or two that are high. What we need to do, obviously, is we want to bring all the frets to the same level. Okay, so relative to each other, we want to take off the high bit of the high frets, and obviously we won't touch the frets that are the correct height. So you can see that we're going to use a file and we'll take a bit off all of these actually. So what we'll end up with in reality, so it's not a very accurate representation, what we're going to end up with is a, just bear with me, let's make the pencil line is going to be our cut part. So we're going to end up with, I'll just do this the same. So, just for info, when we've used the fret file all the way across all the frets, we're going to end up with all of the frets with some taken off the top. I'm just drawing that out first of all to show you what that will look like, and we'll make, the way the file will work is it will take a bit off all of them, but you'll see in a second from my drawing that it will take more off some than others. So if we look up close to the drawing again, you can see that there's quite a bit that will be taken off there, hardly any off there, but it'll still make a flat spot on the top. Loads off here which will make a flat spot, and a little bit off there. But you can see that we'll end up with something that is completely flat. We'll have levelled all the frets. But the problem is then, is that we'll end up with a series of frets that look like, if you like, very crudely put, like that. When we have a fret that is rounded, like that, the string passes across the top of it, and the intonation point is, if you like, right there in the centre. Okay, and so that what matters is the distance between that bit in the centre there and, let's say, the bridge over here. Okay, and it's that distance here that's the what would we call it? The scale length, or the length of that string, the playing length of that string. Remember that the bridges, let's make the bridge down this way and the nut up that way. When we, if we were to fret the string on this one, the danger is that this then becomes the start point of that same distance between the string still goes at the top, right? Roughly. But its string length will start from there, not the middle, right? So we'll have lost whatever distance that is, right? It's microscopic, but it will make a difference to the intonation. Also, obviously, this flat edge will be impossible to bend strings on because it will have loads of big scratches on it. Also, it won't work very well to bend strings because it's flat anyway. They won't be comfortable with that. It'll have a kind of an edge to it, which will actually break the string eventually. So what's clear, it'd be good if you had a different coloured pen. What's clear is once we've ended up with a bunch of frets with these flat tops, we're going to need to reshape that fret because we want it to have, once again, a nice, that's pretty good, a nice rounded profile. All right? So you can see that suddenly reprofiling this fret requires us to take off a set of material off the edges, or the shoulders of the fret if you like, to give us back this nice smooth curve, but without going any further down. And that's the critical bit here. We cannot go any lower. If we go any lower, then we will undo the good work we've just done in levelling the frets. If we make one of these lower because we're reshaping it and it goes wrong, and let's say we end up with something like that, Right, we've just created ourselves a problem again. So the critical thing is, once we've levelled it, we then have to reshape each fret, but make sure that this bit here stays exactly the same height it is, and you'll see how we do that when we come to it. Right, now 30 minutes in, here we go. So I'll change some specs, get my close-up specs. So the first stage in this game then is we've levelled the neck, we've checked the frets for our leaderboard. You don't have to do it if you've got this kind of file, but it's useful to do anyway, just to see what you've really got. Look at that. That is a lot of uneven frets. And if we were to kind of exaggerate on the ones that were most uneven of all by adding some extra weight to it, I can't remember where it was, but there were some absolutely mega ones. Right, there you go. So now we're ready to use our wonderful fret levelling file, and here before we do it, we make sorry about this, we put a stripe of permanent marker across the top of every single fret, and this is really useful because it dries on top and then it lets us see where the file has taken away metal, and where we've missed it we'll still see the black marker pen, and where we've taken the metal off it'll be shiny metal. Sorry, where we've taken metal and the marker pen off, you'll see shiny metal. So it's a very good way of letting us know what we've touched and what we haven't. Very cheap and simple, and we'll use this again in a minute as a way of letting us know when we're about to take any height off the fret. So here we go. I start with the fret file, I start right at the top here and get it as flat as I can on the frets, and just push all the way down to the end, trying to avoid the file skipping. We don't want it to kind of judder its way down. Now I can see from this already that there are some frets here which are considerably lower than others, so we're now evening that out. And now I'm going to keep going until I've caught all the metal. It sounds quite extreme, but I don't want to leave a low spot. So I keep on working on this until I've caught every bit of the metal. There's a really, really low fret down here. Quite incredible. And I'm only barely getting to touch it. In fact, I haven't touched it yet. And that's significantly lower than the frets around it. That's amazing. Now the string is never likely to touch there, but because it's right on the edge. But that's quite something. That is, I don't know why it's either being squeezed in or seated deeper than any of the other frets around it, but there's quite a difference there. I'm going to move away from it and come inwards and move towards the centre, making sure that I touch every part of the frets as I come in. Again, I don't want to leave any troughs untouched. If I have to, I will take away enough material all round of the other ones. They're very large. This guitar is very old, but it hasn't been played much because there's tons of fret material, and so if I need to take more away in order to get all these frets level, I'm going to have to do it. And that's where sometimes you need to hold your nerve when you're doing this. There will be troughs. There's a load of material coming off this. Just going to get rid of it for a minute. I don't know if you can see this, but there are some troughs in these frets, particularly, if I can point to them, particularly, there's one there which is so much lower than the others I haven't even touched it yet, and there's a couple of there's a low spot there as well, which I haven't touched. So this is quite nerve-wracking because we had a guitar through a little while back, a friend of mine, Bob's guitar, and it was a PV Patriot, and it was again from the same age as this, but he'd played it into the ground, so he had some frets with dents in them, really big dents, and in order to reclaim the frets, if you like, level them, we had to take all of them down until we met the bottom of those worn out troughs, which meant that there was not a lot of fret material left by the time we got there. The only alternative to that would have been to refret the guitar, which I didn't really want to do because it would have taken an awful long time. So we kind of had to stick with it and keep on taking material away until we got there. We finally did, but we also got to see just how much we had to take off to get down to those troughs worn out by his fingers over 30 years of playing. Which is quite something. Okay, now I'm just going to turn around and come back this way just to make sure I get the first fret down this end, because sometimes it gets overlooked in this process. It's not surprising, it's quite difficult to get to the very last fret since it's not normally, it's difficult to reach with that file without banging into the nut. So I've taken a lot off here and I'm almost there. I'm just going to go a couple more times just to get the last remaining bits picked up. I am looking at it and I think I'm going to stop right now. So again, done by kind of instinct and experience, I can see that some of them I've taken an enormous amount off, and actually it's borne out exactly. I'm going to take some close-up photographs of this while you wait, because it bears out brilliantly what I diagnosed with my fret rocker, and it shows, and these particular frets are incredibly high. As a result, it appears to have taken off a huge amount of material. So I'm just going to see if this works, if it's any good as using the magnifying part. Come on, come on, come on. No, it doesn't want to focus very well. Does it? Or is it my eyes that don't want to focus? I suspect it might be my eyes in these glasses. Ooh. Come on. No. Oh, that's better. Not perfect. Wonder if it will work better. Just as. Yep, that's pretty good. It's also a bit of a, what's the word? A bit of a hump still in that particular fret, but it's alright, the next stage will remove that. Okay, so now we have levelled the frets in a quite scary procedure. We've taken off a lot of metal to get them level because of the massive unevenness to begin with. But that's okay. Now, next stage is we take our marker pen and we go right back over all those frets again, cover them over with a permanent marker, and this time the marker's going to tell us, or it's going to show us that we've taken, or it tells us when we've rounded off the profile of the fret, and shows us that we've stopped before we've taken any of the material off and lowered it any further. And to do that, we're going to use this fret, what do you call it? Fret crowning tool, and this is bought from a company in the US called StewMac, and they sell expensive but very good quality tools. Most people who do this kind of work really rate their tools. I have to agree, they are pretty good. And whilst most of the time you kind of try and avoid spending all that money to begin with, eventually you reach a place where actually it just makes sense to buy this kind of tool. So I'm going to use the jumbo size side of this, because these are nice jumbo files. And all I do is I just put the thing on here and I just run it back. It's diamond coated, so it's got a really good cutting edge to it. And because these are jumbo frets and we've done quite a bit of flattening, it's going to take a bit of a while to reclaim the profile of these frets. But when they do, we'll have a nice, nicely rounded off fret ready for polishing, which will be the third and final stage of this. As I say, you can see that that's taking quite a bit of work. What you won't be able to see, but maybe I can use the magic of optics. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. I'm just guessing, you may not be able to see this, but if you were able to see that, would you be able to see the black strip down the centre of the fret? Because if you could, you'll see that that's what's telling us that we haven't lowered that part of the fret at all. We've reshaped the side, you can see that by the silver shiny metal, but what we haven't done is taken that middle bit down, and that's exactly what we need to know. So we just carry on and we do all of them the same way. So at this point I'm going to stop and listen to the radio, because I don't want to bore you. Actually, I know, I'll bore you and listen to the radio. How about that?
There weren't nothing like that.
That's Western on Radio 4. Weird thing doing Westerns on Radio 4. Thing is, and it sounds stupid, but if you put music on while you're doing your video, you get you get stuffed by YouTube. The YouTube has software. You won't believe this, maybe, but it has software that listens or reads the audio on your video and compares it against a database of known tunes or copyright registered tunes, and if it finds a match, then it either blocks your video altogether or it applies ads in whatever terms that were agreed with the copyright holders. It's quite incredible, but you get a notification saying you've breached copyright, basically. So you may even get that if they hear Radio 4 content. It's pretty spookily clever. Sort of worrying in another way. Quite a lot of work for this, that's because they're jumbo frets, but it's doing it, it's making a nice profile out of it. Now this is working on the really flat one, it's taking a lot of material off the edge of that. I'm listening to that. A, it's a Western, and B, I can't hear it anyway. I never did like Westerns when I was a kid, or an adult. Okay. Third of the way through, numerically speaking. Used to do this part of the job with a manual file, a three-edged triangular file, three-sided triangular file, It's entirely possible to do it, just a lot slower. A bit more precise actually, in some ways, not quite as consistent. But you know, these swings and roundabouts, I suppose. One of them being, you know, this three-sided file costs a mere £8. That costs about 80 in total with postage. You pays your money and you takes your choice. Now, one of the things I'm going to have to think about is moving this camera position, because I've not got the lighting right in here, and this picture often burns out. So I don't know whether it might be better off when I mount it up here. I've got a bit of Velcro up there, which means I could point it down straight head on, if possible. Prove that I've got Velcro everywhere, because it's the most useful stuff for fixing things you could possibly imagine. Can't get enough of it. Right, we're just past the halfway mark. And, this is easier to do with the neck off the guitar, as you can see, but it's also possible to do, especially with this shape of tool. It's actually entirely possible to do with the neck on, which is usually the case for an SG with a glued neck, or a Les Paul copy, or a Les Paul. Not that I've seen a Les Paul in this workshop. So only about 6 frets to go after this one. Again, we've still got a pretty convincing line of black right along the top of each of these frets, telling me that we haven't taken the height down at all, and that's what we're watching for all the way through. Not to take anything off the height. Wear down the shoulders of the frets to reprofile it, but don't take the height away. So long as we do that, we know we're heading for a nicely finished, redone, levelled set of frets, which for me is the foundation of a good setup, and it's what so far has made the work I do seem to resonate or hit home with people when they get their hands on a guitar that's had this process done to it, because this amount of time and effort really translates into a very, very different feel to the usual guitar. A lot more precision and a lot easier to play in all kind of respects. Okay, so here we are, just now finally reprofiling the last fret, and we're done. I'm just going to brush this off again. So we've got all the frets rounded off, all with a strip of black down the middle, some of slightly different widths to others. That's a bit, actually you can be a bit more precise with one of these, even though it takes you a lot longer. But this is good enough. It's a small enough patch of a small enough flat spot on the fret to work with. If there are a couple that are just a little bit bigger than others, I'll just give them a quick tap here, just to see if I can take that flat spot down a tiny bit more. The less we can work with as a flat spot, the better. And I'm also kind of just rocking the tool from side to side a little bit where I need to. Maybe one bit more on this side. Okay, done brilliantly. Thank you, tool. Now, here comes the good bit. This is where we are going to need to take the scratches on this down a series of stages. And I guess, again, a bit of paper, a way of thinking about what we're doing might be useful. Stages. Okay, let's sort of think. So right now we've got mostly rounded fret with a patch on top which has fret file scratches, and they're pretty rough, and they're running longitudinally, so the fret file scratches are very rough. And we need to then apply, we're going to start with 320 grit paper. Let's put it right. 320 grit paper, and we're going to then smooth that off a bit. Then what we're going to be left with is 320 grit scratches. Okay, and then we use a 600 grit, which is going to give us a patch. Actually, it's all over, but the bit on top is the critical bit, and that's going to end up with 600 grit scratches on top. Right. Then we're going to use the micromesh papers, which go 1500, 2000, oh no, 1500, 1800 to 2200, and so on up to 12,000, which is kind of polishing. But I guess what you can see is that we can't really move on until we start with the file marks that we've left on here. We use the 320 and we don't move on until all the scratches under the magnifying glass on top of these frets is only 320 scratches, and we'll be able to spot the difference because the fret file scratches will look like little black pock marks, partly because they'll still contain the marker pen, but also because you can see them, they're clearly different, a whole grade of scratch different from the 320 grit scratching. Once we've confident we've got rid of all the marks of this file, and then means we'll be left with frets with only 320 grit scratches on them, then we'll go to the 600 and we'll remove all those 320 grit scratches and leave only 600 grit scratches. When we've done that, then we move to the micromesh and we go through all the stages. This is the critical bit here. If we move from here, if we move from here to here too quickly, we'll leave tail end of those scratches still in the top of the fret, and we'll race on through all of these stages and end up with what looks like a really shiny set of frets, but in fact they'll still have some of these scratch marks from the original file, the fret leveling file, still in the top, and that will make a horrible playing experience. So it's absolutely critical that we get these first three stages right, and to do that we're going to scrutinise the frets with this magnifying glass, get right up close and be really critical. If I still see a single little dark spot representing a part of the fret file scratching, then I'm going to go back and do it more with the 320, right? Because there's no point, there's nothing as disheartening as getting to the end of this whole process and finding you still have a scratchy fretboard. You've wasted your time. Well, not you wasted it, you've levelled the frets, but you have to go back through the polishing sequence, and it's pretty heartbreaking or demoralising. So I'm going to get out some two grades of paper here. I'm going to pull out 320 and 600, and I'm going to pull myself some, or cut or rip off some workable chunks of each. I'll need a few to work with, and I'll cut these, put some of them out of the way. So we've got 600s there, and we've got two 320s here. We'll take the same number of those. Once we've done all the stuff with paper and micromesh pads, then we're going to end up with going over with the Dremel and some some polishing cream. Okay. Right, so here we go. We begin with the first grade, which is 320. I'll keep that there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use my hands and let my fingers roll up and over the top of the frets, so that the paper is not going to create a flat spot. It's just going to go up and over the contours, keep the profile. And another thing is, of course, this is going to take down a tiny bit of height off the frets, but we're going to make sure that we do the same amount to all the frets. So we take, broadly speaking, the same amount off everything. This will wear out the paper pretty quickly, but it's okay. It's the price we have to pay. If the masking tape peels off and threatens to expose the fingerboard, then we need to be ready to mask it off again, because we cannot afford to run the risk of damaging the fingerboard. Now this is my guitar, and you know, it would only be me that suffers, but if you're doing it for a client, there's no way you can explain away the fact that you put huge scratches on the fingerboard because you didn't mask off the wood properly, or you were doing this and it came unpicked but you just carried on anyway. It's not going to be very well received, I can tell you. So I'm going to do the whole of one pad or piece of paper in this direction, making sure I get consistent pressure on all of the frets, all the way up and down. Truth is, it's hard to get the same pressure on the first and last ones, but you can try. And if it is wearing them down, then it's wearing them down at a uniform rate. And you can see it's quite a messy process. And I'll just stop it. Now what I'm going to do is just turn it round, use another piece and come backwards, doing the same thing. Again, keeping an eye out for if and when the masking tape should come unstuck or start rolling and expose the fingerboard, which is done right at the end here. So I'm just going to cover this up. The more masking tape, the better. It's £1. I get it down the market for £1.30 a roll, or £1.10 actually. So what's £1.10 for preserving the good condition of your precious guitar that you're going to play and enjoy for years? It's a small price to pay. So skimp is the message I'm communicating. Okay, so again, loads of the particles coming off. You notice we're doing this dry. Now what I do, there's a little test I do, which is quite handy. I stop at that point. I've pretty much worn out those two pieces. And I'm just going to tear off a piece of 2000 grit. And what I do to do a check, this is where I'm going to stop and see how it's going. I take the 2000 grit and I'm just going to wipe it across the frets in perpendicular to the way I've just been doing it. And what that does is it kind of makes them look dull. And it's very useful because in making them suddenly look dull, it's very helpful to show up the little black marks. Now, to do this, I'm going to need to lift this up and have a good, really good close look under the microscope sort of thing. As I say, I'm looking for telltale signs of the marks from the fret file. And I can see one or two only, but one or two is one or two too many. And mostly the surface of these frets are already now at the 320, but if I'm honest, there's a bunch over there right on the edge that need taking care of, and they will, I can see them now there. Fair bit on the outside edge here. where we had so many high frets, this is still sticking up quite a lot. Sorry, it's still got a lot of little pits from the fret leveling file. So I'm going to go back to these and give them some more treatment, concentrating a little bit more on this edge, but not so much that we ignore everything else and break our own rule of doing everything consistently. But I know where the problem is, and to get this right, I am now decided that I'm going to use both these papers, because I'm going to go over this in the other direction with the last fresh piece of 320, and I suspect that once I've done that, we'll be ready to move on. And so I'm going to chuck this one and go back over this the other way. Again, this time concentrating on this inner edge a little bit, where we have the really high spots. The really high spots only mean that we ended up with a wider flat spot, and that's why there's still some marks left here, because there was more of a scratched and gouged surface than on the other frets. And I have a feeling this will have taken care of that. But we will not assume it, we will double check it with the magnifying glass again. Of all the things, this is the key piece of work. Well, yeah, they're all key, but this will make the difference when you get your hands on the finished thing. This is the bit that will feel like you've done it right, or you'll immediately tell the difference, or you'll immediately know if you haven't, because you'll get scratchy frets. Now that is got everything, even the wide ones. Okay. So I'm comfortable. We've replaced all the fret leveling file scratches with 320 paper. That cost me 2 strips, but it means we're now ready to move to the 600, and we don't have to be quite so precious now, or go so long, because we've taken out the main work is done, the big scratches are out. Now the purpose now is to take out the 320 scratches and replace them with the 600s. Again, I'm still using my fingers at this stage, still letting them ride up and over the frets. And again, all I'm going to do in a minute, when I feel like I've got everything done, I'm just going to go back to the magnifying glass and just convince myself that we've successfully moved from 320 scratches to 600 scratches. And if we have, we'll move on. This is learned the hard way from experience. I remember a few times I'd done all of this hard work and ended up with a finished job where you pretty much put everything back on, wired up, polished, everything beautiful, the action just lovely, and then you put it on and play it, and the frets felt gritty under the strings, and that's such a shame, or a bummer to have after doing all of that work, to have an experience that doesn't feel good, or not as good as it should be. And it's just, what's the word? Yeah, just spoils it really. Okay, is good. We are 600 scratching. Now from this point onwards, you won't be able to see the grade of the scratches. But because we've done this bit right, I can now be confident that when I move to the micromesh paper, what I'm going to do as a series, and I'm going to use a pointed foam block. Now when we move to this, I can be sure now that we are just polishing from this stage. What I will do is I'll spend more time with the 1500, because we're going from 600 to 1500 in one jump. That's the biggest jump we're going to make in all of these, so I'm going to give this a little bit of extra time, a couple of minutes even. if I were to look at this under the magnifying glass now, actually it's a very good thing to do if you get a chance and you're doing this. Do stop and look at it under the magnifying glass, because what you will see is what the 1500 scratch looks like, and now at this level it's practically invisible. All it looks like is a sort of slightly, I don't know how to describe it. You can see it, but you can't see the individual scratches, but you can see that it's got some scratching. Now moving down now, and this will only be now a minute or so, if that, on each one. We're now moving to the sort of final few steps of this, which is increasingly going to be polishing rather than doing anything else. You can see how dirty this neck has become throughout this whole process. So it's another one of the reasons why we make sure that we have the masking tape on, because it is a bit of a mucky old process. So this is a 2200, I think. And then we go to 3600. These kits come in 9 sheets typically, which range from 1500 through to 12,000, which is very, very fine, but obviously it doesn't go in regular, even steps. It jumps quite a bit here and there. And in some sense it would be, if you knew there was a big jump coming, you might spend a little bit longer to make sure you really pick up all the scratches from the previous size, but we are so fine by the stage of 4,000 now. It's almost like just polishing. Of course, polishing is nothing more or less than taking off some material with a very, very fine abrasion. As far as we can see it, it just looks like the thing's getting shinier and shinier. Now I've managed to skip 1 or 2 here. I thought there was something missing from this. Actually, it's 1 that's out of sequence, but we won't worry about it now. $6,000. $8,000. And finally, 12,000. Nice. So that's the micromesh stage done, and now I'm just going to dig up one of our little, starting to wear out. Let's get a fresh one. How many of these have we got? 4. Okay, we've got enough. We can afford it. I'll keep the old ones for desperate times. So we just unscrew this little cotton-based polishing wheel. It's bought online, but designed to fit the Dremel TM type of thing, and fairly simple to use actually. They spit off a fair bit of material. It is a destructive sort of process. As far as this wheel is concerned, it doesn't last very long. Seems to be kind of impossible to use it without destroying it. There's no alternative really. But you get about 3 fretboards out of one of these things, so it's not too bad. Now while I'm doing this, I want to give myself as much length, shaft length, as possible, because that's not what I want to do. Because it helps us to reach the frets without running the risk of having the chuck anywhere near the metal. And that's, I'm not really doing this properly, am I? Yeah, one of the biggest risks at this stage is to make contact. It's not turning around, is it? Yeah. Am I doing something wrong here? Yeah, the danger is to slip with the Dremel and for the chuck to contact the fret. And if it does that, you have to go back to square one basically, which is such a bummer. You don't want to be doing it. Come on, screw in and screw in. Has this thread gone and died? I have a horrible feeling it has. How can that be? This is not screwing up, which means it doesn't work. Or could it be that it's screwed in as far as it will go? That's not good. Annoying. Let me try and transfer something else. Sorry for this delay. Let's try another one from another piece. Come on. If this one doesn't work, then I'm going to switch to a different shafty thing, if you know what I mean. If the thread's gone on the inside of this. Right. Fiddle. Talk about fiddly, really. Let us talk about fiddly. Come on. Right, that works. I don't know what happened to the other bit. Must have got knackered. Oh my lord, what is going on here? Nothing is working the way I expected it to. Finally, Dremel, thank you. That's done up tight. Make sure this is done up tight. In turn. Done up tight. Right, these can go away possibly for a few. Actually, no. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw those away if they don't work. Spare. Right, okay. Momentary delay, however. Going to get me some cleaning, polishing cream, and I'm going to just splatter some on to the fretboard wherever I can. I'm conscious that it will spit most of it off to one side anyway. We just need to get some, as much as we can, onto the cleaning cloth thing. And again, that will chuck it all over the place, so we won't keep much of this on there, but we'll do for starters. And then we'll kick off. So it'll be a bit noisy for a minute or so. So Dremel, rule of Dremel, 2 hands, okay? Unless you want to ruin your frets and go back to the beginning. Trust me. And plug the Dremel in. These batteries are not charging. So notice I'm using two hands. The left hand is supporting this. Bits of cotton going everywhere. The danger is when you get to the far edge, it's likely to slip over the edge and pull you with it. And if it does, that's when the chuck is going to get pulled down onto the fret, and if that happens you will be in floods of tears, because you'll be back to square one of the fret leveling process, because you're going to have to take the frets down to pull out any chip you've just made in it. So take it from me, do not think of doing this without using two hands, and have one hand as the restraining hand. It's going to stop that happening. All it needs is for what happened once and you're going to wish you hadn't. Almost there. Covered in bits of cotton and stuff. So remember the old advice, which is that most accidents happen within a few hundred yards of home, most car accidents, and so remember that as you're rushing to finish this job and to unleash these beautiful frets and see what the result of your handiwork, remember, that's the point at which you're likely to make the mistake. Okay, so take my word for it. Be restrained and don't rush. So, having masked this off in the first place by making these pieces of tape come together at the back as a sort of tab, you'll now see why it makes it a hell of a lot easier to unpick the neck too much, to allow you to go around the front again and pull it all off without having to do too much with your thumbnails like that. But by and large, it's much easier to pull off. So, here we go, we're lining up for the final dash. Actually, it's quite a bit more to do, but you can, I don't know if you can see from there, but this is a beautiful shiny neck, probably shinier than most modern guitar players like. I think this is a style of the 80s, to put a lot of gloss lacquer onto the neck, where nowadays people prefer to take a sandpaper or a micromesh and make that into a silk finish by sanding it, which is perfectly possible to do. Personally, I don't mind. I quite like the difference in this compared to some of the other guitars. So I'd probably be tempted to leave it with its 80s sort of finish, but to each their own taste. I'm sure it slows you down if you're an ultra fast lead guitar player, but conveniently I'm not, so don't have to suffer from that. So according to this, we're about an hour and 22 into this process, and you can see that from that this is about the standard length of time it takes. It's got a little bit quicker these days since we use the both the fret leveling file and the fret crowning file, diamond fret crowning file. So that part of the process has got a little bit quicker. So we're probably saving 10 minutes or so. It used to be about an hour and a half, if not a little bit more, for this process. But now we're kind of up to a good speed. But you can see that the main point about it is there's no quick way of achieving this, right? And if you wonder, I suppose if you wonder why it hasn't happened to your guitar before, what you've just seen is probably an answer, or the answer you need. The fact that it takes 90 minutes of hard work, focused work, to do this job. When I started doing this, the first thing that struck me was, well, if it's taken me this long to do it, that starts to explain maybe why it's not done in the factory or in the shop, because it's a hell of a job. And if you're in the business of buying and selling guitars, and you're working to perhaps very tight margins, profit margins, then I can really see straight away how and why doing this sort of work would be very difficult. You know that time is money in all aspects of business, and spending this long making the neck the way we want it to be would basically just kill your profit margin. It would make it unworkable as a business model. So I can really get it, that it would be very hard for people to do that and still churn out budget guitars at 140 quid in a pack with a case and a lead and an amp. But that's in a way the compromise that you get, because in a sort of competitive, price sensitive, competitive game between manufacturers, when the profit margins become that small, then you can't afford these quality touches, and that's where I come in, intending to add value with a process like this. And it really has. And again, you wouldn't know this until either you played this one or until you played your guitar again, having had this done, and seeing what a difference that makes. So there we have it, Sunn Mustang, brought back to life, ready to play, with fully levelled frets and beautifully polished. looking every bit, it's, well, looking much younger than its 30 odd years. That's incredible. Beautiful, ready to go. It doesn't have a date on this neck, but it has a serial number. So there we go, I'm going to hang that up. That is now ready for me to finish off the body and put this in and get it back into playing order and see how great it sounds. Oh, if I'm looking a little bit hot and sweaty, it's because I've just finished a polish off and rub down of the this little baby, including its repairs. Now they're not perfect, but you know what, for me they're good enough to get going with. So now here comes the bit I've been waiting for some time, well, since earlier on. Yes, the newly levelled frets, gently fitted into this delicious repaired neck thingy, and I'm going to see what happens when we add into the mix the neck plate and the original screws, and let's see if our repair has gone some way to strengthening this a little bit. I'm sure it will have, but I'm also realistic. I don't think it will have made it the most perfect thing in the world. So first of all, I'm going to be very careful with this. It's quite loose because it wasn't a very good fit. That's one of the problems, I think. So I'm just holding this in place. So maybe I won't hold it. I'm going to push it into place where I think it should sit. I'm going to be conscious of this going in because we've glued some of the wood. If we go according to the reports on the tight bond, it's supposed to be stronger than the actual wood itself, but obviously we want this to this neck to really lock in properly and not suffer from any more movement. So that's in a good position now. I'm going to go corner and corner. I'm going to go really slow because I don't want to go off track. I just want it to pick up the slack and house itself back into the slots. Now before I tighten it, I'm just going to have a quick look on the other side. Make sure, by and large, it's straight where it should be. And it's fabulous. There's absolutely no chance of adjusting that truss rod, even if we wanted to, the way it's constructed. How weird is that? It's not the first guitar we've had that way. But, okay, now I'm just tightening up. I can feel it pulling tight on the joint. I can feel it again. And it's quite a loose torque setting here, so I'm not putting it under too much tension, but should be just enough to hold it nicely. But yeah, I'm trusting basically that the string tension, which when we put them back on, is going to cause this neck to go into the right amount of relief. Okay, so we have a reattached neck. Everything looks okay to begin with. I might let this sit for a minute, and then I may well do a couple of, well, not a couple of times, I may just slightly tighten up with a handheld screwdriver. But I'm looking forward to putting this back in. I'm going to take my little label off. And it's all the original stuff really. I think somebody along the way has replaced the humbucker with a different kind, but it's got this wonderful, I don't know if you can see it, it's wonderful old-fashioned switch with springs attached. So I have some wires just kind of dangling around here loose, which interestingly, I don't think all of those wires were loose the last time I looked at this, so what the hell this is from, I don't know. I guess that one's going to be these earth ones. Where are they? You have a few little. That's a common earth. That's just dangling free. God knows what that is. Actually, that's got quite a bit of work to do to get this back into order. But the fun part so far is the replacement of the neck, and from where I sit, that's feeling pretty snug. There's no cause for concern. And right, I have to say, for me, it's not perfect, but it's a lot nicer looking than it was a couple of weeks ago when it was all sort of shards of wood sticking out with fresh air down the sides of it. So it's not perfect, but it feels like a guitar that's a bit more solid than it was. And of course I know that it now has a nice levelled set of frets. So I'm going to put this to one side. Ooh, it's in one piece. Amazing. Off to one side. Nice. And I'm going to have a phone call shortly, and that's going to be interfering with the recorder. I'm so sorry again. Half an hour from now, I have a phone call to make. But I would like to take care of this ear wiring. So I've got some black. That's going to go to the jack plug socket. This has been completely broken off. It's very, very flimsy. What am I working on? So we've lost the earth to the earth, earth to another earth there. That doesn't reach. One of these goes through to the doofer claw, tremolo claw. But I think I'm going to need to look very carefully at what's going on here. Which is annoying because this was working a little while ago, but it's so flimsy. The wiring is, I think, pretty ancient. So I'm going to have to consider this as broken. It's an HSS configuration, essentially, so I will in fact go and get myself a wiring diagram just to make sure. And I think I'm going to replace some of these wires because they're the main ones off the pickups are okay, but they're a bit flimsy around here, and they've lost their well, they've either broken off the solder or whatever. There's two little capacitors there which are fine. So with an HSS diagram it shouldn't be too much problem, but I'm going to stop there so I don't mess it up because I haven't got the time to do that. I'll do the research a bit later. But anyway, just a quick summary. Very happy to say we have a neck reinstalled on this guitar. No access whatsoever to the truss rod. I'm going to hope that the string tension does what it does on most guitars, which is pull the correct amount of relief into the neck. I suspect it will, but it feels a lot nicer, a lot more cared for than it did a few weeks ago. Even though it's not a professional repair. It's let's cobble it together and see what we can do. An attempt at stabilising the cracks and doing a degree of cover up with paint which isn't exactly the right colour, and for all I know might not even be the right kind of paint. This may well be, I've assumed it's a nitro finish, but it could be something else. So my darling, look.
Hello, Cinderella.
It's together.
Ooh.
Look at the joins. As you can see, it's not very good paint, but heck, it'll do.
Very good. Much better
than
though.
it was.
Yeah.
And I've sold the Epiphone.
Have a muffin for
Thank
your
you.
hard work.
Yeah, sold
Fab.
the SG
Great.
Epiphone one. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. I've just got to got to get a diagram and wire this baby.
Oh, that bit.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Cool. Well done.
Yeah, happy.
Yay.
Right, I'm going to cut the video. And yeah, I've got another guitar to package. That's good news.
Fab.
Rock, boing, spring. Hello. Good evening. Sam here in the Releved Guitars workshop, speaking to you on this thing, coming to you on that thing. Just doing a little bit of tidying up. Been a busy week off from the day job, and during that time I've got four setup jobs done for various customers, which has been great. Some different guitars in the workshop that I've not seen before face to face. One of them being a Fender made in Mexico Strat, which is brilliant to get your hands on something new. What else has there been? I'll need this out in a minute. Yeah, made in Mexico Strat, a Bernie Les Paul, which is quite an interesting and highly well respected quality Les Paul copy. Also a Samick, no, not a Samick, what am I talking about? A Charvel San Dimas, which is a kind of super Strat, I think you'd probably call it that. But again, another nice, lovely guitar, beautifully made, and in this case beautifully finished, because my client's speciality is finishing guitars, so he's got good experience in the paintwork side of things, which has resulted in some fantastic metallic finishes on those guitars. And what else I am missing? Yeah, what else did I do? Oh yeah, and earlier on in the week a Korean Telecaster Squire, which was quite a surprise. I mean, a fairly easy guitar to set up, but I think the surprise to me was the fact that it turned out to be plywood, which after I went and did a bit of research, turned out to show that a lot of those guitars were in fact made of plywood. What am I looking for here? I'm just going to take out something I don't need from this pile of things. That's what I don't need, this Torx thing. Right. So yeah, so 4 really interesting guitars to set up, and it leaves me tidying up a little bit. But now I'm getting on to... Hello, Malcolm. Malcolm? It's not Malcolm. My cat isn't called Malcolm. I'm thinking about one of my other customers. Cat is Morris, who's now decided to go to sleep in here. Yeah, so it's been busy. Now I'm back onto some of the guitars in-house which need sorting out, and by some quirk of fate it ends up being the situation where we've actually got 3 vintage SGs to work on, and 3 vintage SGs and 1 Sunn Mustang, which is what I really want to get onto now, because hence the wiring diagrams for an HSS guitar. And oh, but just before we go, here are the 3 vintages. Spin you around. We've got this one here, which the condition it was bought in is absolutely fab. For a rarity really good condition, but really well set up as well. So this plays nicely straight away, and it's got I think this switch is a bit funny, but it's got a DiMarzio apparently here in this position. Now I'm torn in 2 or more minds. This is a really nice guitar to just plug in and play, but kind of common sense tells me I really need to sell it more than I need to own another SG. Because in the house I've also got... Morris has been sick. Oh dear. In the house I've already got, or also have, another SG made by Ace Pro, and that's a really interesting thing that I wasn't sure if I was going to like, but it's a really charismatic, I like to think of it, charismatic SG with a massively fat neck all the way down, and like these, which are really tapered, slim necks. The Ace Pro has a fat neck, and but I really like it. There's something amazing about it. So anyway, we'll worry about getting those 3 SGs done, whether I keep one or not. But certainly two of them are ready or need to go out. One of them is cherry, and the other one is this white one here, which is sitting in a pre-set up condition. So I need to put tape on that. But meantime, here we are with the Sunn Mustang Stratocaster style thing, and you know, this is made under license by Fender, and I have to say, to me, it looks more Fender Strat than most Fender Strats. And this is the one where I've done a kind of repair, a really unprofessional repair to the cracks, and just ladled on some paint and some lacquer to finish it off. And it's by no means is it professional, and I'm not attempting to be. I don't think it doesn't make any sense to try and do this up and sell it. Particularly, I mean, even at best, these guitars only reach about £125. And this one, starting out as it did, with a completely shredded neck pocket and a split in the head as well, but believe it or not, in the neck. Not going anywhere, that split, by the way. It's quite stable, but you know, it's never going to go out as a guitar worth putting loads of time into and selling. So this is going to be a player's guitar, and you know, I guess the only time I may come into a position to sell it might be where I've just seen something. Might be where somebody comes and plays it, or you know, really likes it, and then there may be a case for selling it to somebody. But what I've just noticed, that's caught my attention here. You won't be able to see it, but I've noticed that one of these slots on this nicely yellowed, aged-looking nut is split right down to the wood. So there's no doubt that this would be very difficult to set up properly with that. So I may have to dig that nut out. It's kind of a pity because it does have a nice age feel to it. Really nice sort of tobacco-stained colour. If we put another one in, it's going to be, unless we put a black one in, it's going to look sort of a bit white and shiny. I mean, we could try and find, I don't know if I've got any here, but we could try and get hold of more of a vintage aged thing. I mean, having said this, I'm not absolutely certain that it won't work at all. I'm fairly sure. Let's take these out. What have we got? Well, we've got one. What do you call it? Tusk nut. I don't think we've got anything that would really stain that up convincingly. We could try a bit of the old tea stain on it or something before lacquering it, but that gets a bit messy. So there's nothing really. We've got an interesting blue one we could use, or in fact we have, no, that's a Les Paul nut. So we're a bit short on replacement nuts, but as I say, if it really is a non-goer, I mean, we could try and do a fix with a bit of the old baking powder and super glue thing in here, and just keep that same nut and just have a little fill. Might just do that actually, because to me that colour is just such a big change. It would really kind of mess up the colour of the guitar. Anyway, it's only a home playing guitar. The only thing I've done to it is, you know, stabilised the neck pocket and the neck, and it does now, compared to before, it sits in there in a really nice tight grip. And I've also chucked away the rubbish tuners and put some decent easy lock tuners on it. So now the only thing that really is outstanding on this guitar, obviously there's a few little bits here, but we're really just getting ready to put the electrics back on. Again, they've got a really nice creamy colour to them, and these are a bit, the wiring's a bit old and knackered, and it's fallen out and come loose in certain places. So this next little bit here is going to be about using an HSS diagram or two, just to make, well, I'm going to strip some of these wires back to make them, get them ready for soldering iron treatment. But really it's about just making sure that these things go to the right places and that these connections are better than they are, because actually they're lousy, some of these connections, and it's been done years ago in faraway India, and so we'll need some replacement wires, I think, just to make this job simpler. So that's what we're doing, and I'm not hugely at all experienced in the wiring department, so most of this will be me probably talking to myself just to try and make sure I know where I'm going with something. These feel very loose, these connections. I'm just going to strip away the shielding where I've got to attach it to something. Half of the problem here is I don't quite know what I'm attaching to what. I can see that I've got a jack plug, wires to the jack plug here, which is a shielded single core. It's an insulated single core with a shielding around it, and the shielding will go to the earth part of the jack plug, and the red bit will go to the tip of the jack plug socket. And I don't know just yet whether what I'm doing here is going to leave me enough room to reach the components, which are currently not in the body, so they're out of the guitar at the moment. So I'm just looking. When I played it, or when I had it out last, it played, but what I'm looking at is just a few things gone awry. Basically, I've got some orange wires here that don't seem to go anywhere, so I've got to figure out where they're going. They should be usable as they are, but I think this has been subject to a lot of knocking about over time, and I think it's just become, all the joints have become very loose and flimsy. I think it's probably a good way to describe it. So if I have to use new wire, I will. The shielding is quite nice and thick on this rubber, plastic or rubber. So if I can get away without replacing that, that would be good. So I think we've got an earth to earth obvious connection, and we've got an orange thing. I don't know what orange signifies here other than sort of slightly live. So as I say, this was playing before I took it apart, and in the taking everything off, the wires have just come unhinged. This little short stumpy one here, I don't know where that's supposed to go to at all. That's a pair that have been pinched off, which I'll put a little bit of tape around because they're not supposed to be floating about loose. Let's bring you in a bit. You may come in. I'm using a microphone stand for this, and it's kind of far from ideal, so it bounces around whenever I move the camera, and I've got a sort of limited range on everything, but I think you can see okay there. It's a funny old thing, this, when you get to doing there's a little bit of wood to cut things on. Yeah, it's a funny thing when you come to doing electrics. You're either electrically minded in the sort of maths type of head, or you're not, and I'm definitely not. So I have to follow this like some sort of, I don't know, paint by numbers puzzle, and it also requires for me to talk to myself an awful lot, which is kind of lucky that I do the video of it. Otherwise I lose track. I have to reassure myself where I'm going. So this is a little bit of tape just around this end bit. Hard to attach at such small scale, and the funny thing about electrical wire is it's never really sticky when you most need it to be sticky. That's always the way. Okay, so I've got what I'm pretty convinced is the thing that goes to the I've got one that goes to the earth on the guitar body, which is cool. I've got one dangling here which doesn't seem to be attached to anything at the moment, and it's too short to go anywhere, which is a bit worrying, and I can't see what this one single wire would go to. It won't go to that earth. That will earth to there. I'm pretty sure that's what's meant to happen. Currently this will be earthed by, well, I'm pretty sure this has got to go. I'm going to cut this one because it's no good. What I think we're missing is an earth from the volume to, volume has to be earthed, and the volume is earthed to the jack plug. Well, they call it output jack. I call it input. Jack output. Okay, and what do we have? We have a volume which has an earth. There's your earth onto itself. The middle one on this goes to... No, it doesn't, not this. Okay, it's always different. The middle one on this doesn't go. Okay, on this one, the first one goes to the jack. The middle one goes to the middle of the switch. On that one, it's the outside one goes to the fourth position on the switch. Oh, that's not really a good representational shot. I'm just looking. That's earth too. This has got earth across to this, so I have to assume that this has been cut short. I don't actually see any. Oh yeah, I do see a place where it attached. Aha, it's been cut off well short. Right, let's get this redone while we've still got time and sanity. It shouldn't be too complex. He said famous last words. We're basically just missing a couple of earth connections, and then they're not very well shielded wires in my case. A couple of earth connections, and then well, the thing I don't quite get is the connection between the two tones. So here we have in the middle one, right, the capacitor goes on the end one to earth, that's right, and then the middle one goes to the selector switch, which it clearly doesn't here, and it doesn't join across on this diagram. So we've got a different wiring diagram. Let's junk that and see if we can get something else that makes sense. So volume pot, no, okay, 250, 500. Don't know what that one is at all. Let's try this one. And if we don't get any further with that, we're out of the game. Okay, all right, we've got a joint here. That's a common. That's an earth common. Okay, this switch doesn't seem to have one. So one of these goes. Hard to tell. Bloody hell. On the tone, that's a volume. What have we got? Volume, volume, tone. Neck and middle volume. That's a. Hey, Sam here in Real Left Guitars Workshop. I don't know what happened there. The camera died. Anyway, I think I've worked out what we need to do on the wiring on this thing. So I'm just heading towards getting the last few bits hooked up. At which point we'll be able to give it a trial. If we get these bits of crappy metal out, we'll be able to give this thing a test. Just going to put that through and get some good old-fashioned solder on it. I think it's all logical. It's a bit of a tight fit actually when this plate went back on. There's no way that this could be out of place. There's the 6 what do you call them? Tremolo screws. Can't go anywhere else, so it has to be in the right spot. It's just very, very tight against the tremolo plate. I mean, there might be half an inch you might go in one direction, but half an inch, half a millimetre, sorry, but it's highly unlikely. So I can't remember it being that tight up against here before. Still, we shall assume that it was, and I'm just going to tuck this live wire now, the hot of the jack plug. I can't hold it well enough with my little pliers. Heat up, come on, go through, no, it's not very good. It's just a mess. Oh dear, come on, don't make a mess of this. What's happened to the soldering iron man? Is it giving up the ghost? Right, we've got a clagged up hole here which is not helping things. I'm going to clear that first before we try and put a new wire in. Come on, clean it up, fellas. otherwise we're just going to melt the whole thing down at this end. We don't want to do that. Right, you stay out of the way. What can we do? Just need something very small, just clear this space. Come on. Some bits of wire from before. Just give us some room here. Something wrong with this, it's not heating the plate up well enough, quick enough. Oh, come on, Jesus. Right. Let's try one more time to get this little wire through in place. I'll put it through physically first and then let the solder do its work and hold it in place. Yes, so when this is in place, we've just got to solder the ground or the earth to the tremolo, and then we should be able to test it. And it would be great if that was all that it required. Cut this bit of excess off. We don't want that dangling around inside, anywhere near the jack plug tip. In you go, my friend. Boink. You can sit there. I've on these screws, what I've done is I've actually partly filled the screw holes with a bit of no more nails, and it's quite nice because it provides a slightly sticky thing for the thread to hang on to, but it's not rock solid, so it won't kind of create it won't split anything. It's not a really solid substance, just enough to make it work well. So I shall try that again sometime. So what I've got here is a little hook for the wire to go under. I just want to put it under there. I'd like to put it under there, and then I'll pile on a bit of solder to this. Get this little bit out of the way. It's not helping things. Come on then, big load of solder onto the metal. Let's do it. Come on. Just at the point when you get it going, you run out of grip on your solder. How extremely annoying can you get? Right, and me believes that will be a fix. For some reason this iron is suddenly appears not to be doing what I want, so just going to give it a quick scrape down. Oh, structurally okay. Is this nicely in? Yeah, that's in. Okay, and I'll just push this this earth wire just slightly out of the way and under the springs, because we don't want it getting caught in the springs if we were using the tremolo, which in this case we're not. Okay, so it would be wonderful for me if at this point our pickups work. It would save me a lot of grief, because what I do know is that there's no wiring diagrams easily accessible online for this guitar, because it's such an old thing. It's working. Everything is good. It's pleasing. Come back to this in a minute. Just make sure this amp isn't going to fall off. It's waddling its way off the thing. Right. So according to this, we are good in that respect. So I'm just going to go around, change glasses. I'm going to leave the soldering iron on for a minute just in case our celebrations are too hasty. I've got some nice shiny, should have some nice shiny pickguard screws here to replace the originals, which really were worn out good and proper. I had a few new ones kicking about. Let's see if I can dig those up first before reverting to the old ones. It'd be quite nice to have it looking reasonably good from the front. Right, so yes, nice to be heading towards restringing and getting ready to try it out. As I say, putting this into this no more nails stuff is a really good move if you stripped the original holes, which this had. So these aren't all brand new, but these are cleaner than the originals anyway. Okay. Very good. Yeah, it's much more positive than it was before, with the wood having been stripped by overuse over the years. I think I've got a few more of these as well to put in. It's maybe too big. They are too big, they are too big. Let's go for slightly smaller ones. Hello, Thomas. Hello. Trick or treat. Huh? Is Mum up or?
Yeah, she's up.
Okay, you want cash money, eh?
Yeah.
Always can hijack me when video's running, so I can't say no and seem like an evil stepdad, much as I'd like to. Hold on, hold on.
Be fitting for Halloween.
What?
Being an evil stepdad.
Oh yeah. Right, come on.
Which is this is the Sunn.
This is the Sunn. I've got it wired up okay, so.
It's working.
Yeah. I haven't. How much do you need?
Some for drinks and some for football.
4? 5?
5. Thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Yeah. I seem to come off worse every time in this deal, but yeah, well. Enjoy your footy.
You too.
It's quite firmly in. Right, what are we left with? One missing here, and then we've got another one, and then we're around the back. One more on the jack plug plate. I think these were actually bigger. There we go. He's come and robbed me on camera again. Right. Film romance.
Still got a headache. Oh. You can drill about
Yeah,
there.
just hold on a second. We're ready to go on this. So it's working. Gonna string it and go for it.
Well done.
I'll see you when you come back.
I go shops.
Oh yeah, alright.
Go shops to buy chat food.
Yeah, I don't mean anything specific.
I've got kind of like inside out. Have I?
I don't know, let me see. Turn around. Would I know? Yeah, the pocket. No, that's right. No, the seams are on the inside.
Door. Yeah, you'll have to pick up the starving animals for the moment.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Okay.
Right, see you in a while.
See you in a little bit. Good. Right. So quick wipe down here, and then I'm going to go into tidy up mode, clearing the decks for restringing and what am I going to do? Restringing, and I should have taken this off. Damn. No, actually, I'm not going to worry too much about this. I was just thinking 2 of these pickup screws are absolutely knackered, but actually they're pretty much at the right height, and I could replace them, and I may well do it at a later point. But right now, I'm just going to let's get this thing working guitar-wise. See if we can get some sort of sounds out of it. Now what I'm just going to do is I'm going to preload preset the bridges to what looks like an average sort of intonation setting, and it may not be correct. Now I have got a whole load of pick guard screws I've got to resort in a minute, but I'll do them afterwards because that's not a priority in this second. Okay, so pull out a set of 9s from the Ernie Ball string shop. Tuner screws go in there, back plate there. As always, I immediately lose my knife blades. Extra wire up there, knife here. Getting on. We got lucky with the weather today. It's absolutely beautiful. It's the last day of October and it's 20 degrees. We went to the beach to collect driftwood, and you wouldn't, just hard to believe how beautiful the weather was. Amazing. Okay, so we're going to grace this this beautiful old rescued guitar with some Ernie Ball 9s, and we're going to wrap them around some Wilkinson Easy Lock tuners. Now remember, I'm a bit nervous about the condition of this bridge nut here, so we may well have a replacement issue. Now with these Easy Locks, what I'm doing is I'm going up to full length, pulling back an inch, then going wrapping round, locking it, and then going to wind it from there. Kind of says when you buy the Easy Locks, it sort of implies that you can just put them on, crank them 90 degrees round through the double hole, and that's the job done. You don't need to do anything else. 1 or 2 turns and you'll be away. There is a kind of there's a balance somewhere to be struck, right? The beauty of the Easy Lock tuners with the twin poles is that they really do prevent the thing going out of tune over time. What I found though is isn't quite as advertised. That on the bass strings you can just do that. You can crank it the 90 degrees through the two holes going in opposite directions. But on the higher strings, the thinner strings, if you just do that, what will happen is you'll find, if you do it, pull it all the way through and just lock it on the 90 degree turn, you'll find that you may well have the string slipping on really hard bends, and I just think it's a shame to get that. So even though you wouldn't think you'd have to, I recommend on the Easy Lock tuners to put it through, bend it, put it through 90 degrees, pull it through full length, then drop back an inch, then crank it through 90 degrees, and then wind on the remaining inch, and it'll be little enough not to give you loads of stretch, and enough to prevent any kind of stretching and slipping when you're doing finger bends, string bends. And I think it's once you've done that, then you get a pretty stable tuning arrangement, and the Easy Locks do come into their own at that point, because it's the sort of long-term stability that they give you. Once you've had all the slack gone, you've knocked all the slack out of your strings, the Easy Locks really do seem to provide longer term stability, which I like. So now I'm going to remember at this moment, just as I do this string, after I've done the string, I'm going to put on the string tree, which is sitting there waiting for us in the parts bin. So this guitar is really a bit of fun more than anything else. I bought it strictly for practicing fixing cracks in the neck, and it's, from that perspective, it's been really worthwhile. I enjoyed the process. What I learned about it was, I think it is fair to say that one way to fix the splits in the neck is to pull them apart wherever you can, and then put glue into the wherever you can. Also get glue into. So if the wood actually comes apart enough, you can get glue get glue into the gap and lock it down, strengthen it. And what I also did was put as much runny super glue as possible into the finer cracks that I couldn't access. What I found, actually, despite having concerns, this little curved syringe worked really well with the gloopy tight bond, which is the really strong glue for guitar building, and actually it worked really well to get into those cracks once they were opened up. Obviously beyond a certain size you can't get it in there, but it did really well for the larger cracks, and then I put some very runny super glue into the thinner cracks. And then what I did was, instead of trying to put lacquer on top of hairline cracks, I decided to cut away at the finish where the cracks were and dig a trench in the finish, so that I could actually add a lot more material, a lot more lacquer. Sorry, a lot more paint first and a lot more lacquer. And of course, you have to make the guitar look a bit ugly while you do that, because you're trashing the finish. But for my liking, it seemed to work quite well. The paint I had wasn't a matching paint. It was as good as I could, or as good as I had. And remember, this wasn't a pro finish. This was just about getting a working guitar, retrieving a working guitar out of this wreck. But once I'd painted those trenches, if you like, those troughs in the finish, then I was able to lacquer them and bring them up to a reasonably smooth finish. So, you know, the point there being is, providing you're comfortable applying lacquer and polishing it out, and you have a reasonably well matching paint, then you should be able to do a neck pocket repair and stabilise the guitar. And having done that, you know, refinish it in such a way that it looks reasonably okay. And as I say, I have no idea, still don't particularly have any idea of what the finish is on this guitar. So I kind of assumed, because of its age, I made an assumption that it was good old-fashioned stinky nitrocellulose, but I could be wrong about that, and in a sense it doesn't really matter, because it's done and the experiment is concluded. It's interesting. I've tried to do some research to find out how the two different kinds of finishes interact. If you find yourself, I haven't put the thing through, if you find yourself quote unquote forced to use one on top of the other, I was really interested to know whether they would work at all, or whether there'd be some kind of explosive reaction and the whole lot would go up in flames. And actually I've really struggled to find any decent information on that, so kind of curious about it still. Now, if it is the case, and I'm pretty sure that I have put nitro repairs on several guitars that have predominantly, or have a polyurethane finish, and you know, for budget sub £75 guitars or whatever, sub £100 guitars, it's not really such a bad thing, and they seem to take it very well. So we shall see. We shall see. But I have also got myself some poly lacquer here as well to do some experiments. and wherever possible, if I find myself having to do some repairs, particularly I've got a fair quantity of black and vintage cherry, so if I get to do a poly repair on a vintage cherry type thing, which I seem to get quite a lot of in the SG world, then that should be interesting to experiment with how that takes and how it dries as well, because it's different from the nitro and a lot less toxic for the person applying it as well. Okay, so I'm on to the last string in this affair, and it's going under the string tree, which I've got at the moment. I've got floating not all the way down. It could do maybe going a crank or two further down, but apart from that, that will probably do me. I don't want it too far down. And I cut the strings at this point nearly all off, but not completely, because sometimes you might find you put them on wrong and they need to be taken out, or something happens, you need to restring, and having a bit of extra to play with on the end of the string is a very good thing. If you cut it right down to the bone, you won't be able to restring it. Interested in these the knot slots there. I'm not quite sure what they are. I'll find out. Okay, so we have some strings attached. They should be reasonably stable on their easy lock tuners. There will be some slack or stretch, there always is. The easy locks don't get rid of that. They're not like full locking tuners you get on a Floyd Rose system. That's not what they do. They're just intended to stabilise and basically arrest the amount of slip you get. Okay, so this is just, for me, this is great. I have got this good looking cream monster guitar. It still needs a bit of body work doing. I haven't done the polishing bit down here, and in fact I'm thinking I may well just also get some spray on here. I've got some spray left, but actually hand applying it, I filled the holes pretty nicely, and it's really levelled out well. Great big chunk taken out of it. But this is such a good looking guitar. I'm really pleased with how this cream ancient beast looks. So I'm going to now move on to setting the action down at this end. I haven't looked at the tremolo. I keep getting these things wrong. I haven't paid much attention at the moment to the relief of the guitar, and that's because we don't have an awful lot of say in it. It's out of reach, and if we were going to make an adjustment, we'd have to get all of it off and take the neck off and make the adjustment, put it back on. Now, I'm going on the basis that these guitars, more than likely, in my experience, if you set the neck straight to do the fret leveling, in my experience, that should be, when you apply string tension, it tends to be just about enough to pull relief into the neck. If it isn't, on guitars where the adjustment's here or easily available either end, you can then make a tiny adjustment. These guitars, and a couple of others I've worked on recently, where you can't get access to the truss rod when the strings are loaded, is really annoying, because what it means is if I didn't get that judgment right, we're going to have to either live with it or take the whole lot off, take the neck off, make adjustment, put it back on, let the strings take up the slack again. So I'm hoping that once we set this action, things will be okay. Now I'm going to use a guide here. I'm going to bend my knees. I've got really bad knees at the moment. If I'm grimacing, that's why. And I'm going to wind this action down for the time being to, I'm going to aim for about 1.5 millimeters cleanly. For an old guitar like this, that still might be a little ambitious. I'm not sure. We're on 1.5 millimeters there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to effectively aim to get the same across the rest of the strings, but I'm going to pretty much do it by eye to begin with. I'm not going to get one of these string things that allows you to put under the string and it shows you the radius of the guitar you're using. I could get one of those, but I don't have one. So I am going by the good old-fashioned eyeball, and I can pretty much see that I'm going to get a curve going across all of these He's moving. These saddles kind of rattle around a bit. Yeah, I'm just gonna aim for getting a nice curve that, in my book, feels like it's tracking the shape of this, the radius of this guitar fairly accurately, and then come down the other side on the high strings. These old grub screws are sort of blackened and are a little bit yucky. Actually, they're not too bad. They're still working, let's put it that way. Okay, so I've got what I think is a reasonable, maybe a little bit too much. I don't know. No, I think I'll stop there for a minute. Got reasonable action, and I'll just keep pulling the strings a bit. I'm just noticing where this is wound on. It's wound on in it's gone on the fat part of the string, a fat part of the winder, and it's going to at some point slide into the thinner part. So I'm just going to help it on its way, because there's no point waiting for it to do that under its own steam over a period of time. We might as well start where we mean to continue. I can hear trick-or-treaters outside. Feel terrible, but so here we are, up to pitch on the top E. Again, we'll have some give, there'll be stretch in it still, so we'll expect it to go out of tune for a bit. But we'll take that as a reference point for now. Now this is the point where we expect the tension now to start pulling the relief into the neck if we need it. Now this is the split nut. I don't know what it's going to do, whether it's going to just shoot down to the wood or not, but well, I like it already. The action down at this end is a little bit high. I'm nervous about attacking that nut because I really like the antique kind of grotty old nicotine stained colour of it. And by the way, I'm just doing an adjustment here because I can see by the alignment of the strings, I can see this G string here is too high relative to the others, so I'm going to lower it a little bit to bring it into line. And it's really just by judging the relative spaces. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh. Just judging the relative spacing between these strings, and that's about right. You can see it lining up with the others. So I'll go back for a tune over here. Add a tune, but I'll keep giving it the pull. I'm going to need to do something with that nut a little bit. I could do with some graphite in there because I don't think these slots were ever cut particularly well, but still going out of tune. Right, we're just going to stop and let this recover and get itself back into tune, and then we'll get on to the final bit, which will be the just checking the nut action and then intonating it. So see you in a minute. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I like this Sunn Mustang. Still a bit off the tune. Well, this little bit of work maybe to do on this. I'm reluctant to change this out because it's such a nice old colour. Otherwise, strap buttons in and solid, firmly put in. I used the no more nails as well to fix them in place, and with a bit more pulling and stretching to get this thing to settle down into tune. Well, this is a really nice guitar now. So 1980s, made in India, licensed by, yes, plenty of stretch left, licensed by the Fender Musical Instrument Corporation. I guess to create, it was one of the early days, I suppose, of creating alternatives to the Fender range or Fender brand. Intonation yet, by the way. intonation yet to come. I think it'll be fairly accurate since I know where it usually sits, but that is one hell of a pickup, that front one. I'm waiting to hear that on the big amp in the house. Virtually nothing paid on eBay. A lot of work to fix it up, but my goodness, what a nice thing when it is going. So I'm just going to, well, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do the intonation. And just going to do it right here while we're still here. Can never get this temperature in the shed right. There's so much light heat, and now slightly melting. Plus the fact that it's about 20, well, it's been 20 degrees all day in this part of the world, which is something else. Okay, so for intonation purposes, I'm going to need my, bash smash, very good thing. To intonate this guitar, I will need, first of all, I need to get this strap organised, because it's really not right. I've done wrong. Twisted it somewhere. Yeah, to intonate it, I'll just need a screwdriver with the right screwdriver head on it. And I've got one here already, ready made. And what I'll need to do is just be able to access these saddles with a screwdriver. And I'm looking to check the harmonic, tune the harmonic on the 12th fret to the correct note. So we'll go to E. Let's turn it a bit louder. I'd say that's spot on. That's also on. Quite amazing. And also slightly sharp, so that means the string's slightly too short, which means we'll wind it in with the clockwise turns, and we'll lengthen the string basically, which will tighten it for now. I'm going to take it down to pitch again. Can't see. Spot on. Now, because of that, I know now roughly where to put the other two. To get the intonation right. So I'll just crank them a little bit before I even start, since I know I've got to make some adjustment there. Might as well get ahead of the game. Hello, Morris. Hello. some help, don't you? Come on, up you come. Sorry. Bit undignified, I know. But you needed help, I could tell. Slightly flat, that means I've gone too long. So I'll now go anti-clockwise and bring it back in a bit towards the nut. And then I'll do the same for the other one because I think I was a bit over enthusiastic about the differences. Come on you go. Now, can I see the guitar, please? The tuner. Back up to A. Yes, that's nice. Yes, you play the guitar with your head. Oh, it's spiky up there. You're going to hurt. Don't do that. Watch out. Careful, that could blind you, my little friend. He's cute, isn't he, with his fur. He's not very old. He's only a few months old now, but he's one of 5. We kept 2 and gave 2 away to neighbours and gave 1 his brother Sooty to my dad and stepmom. And we've got Mr. Morris here, who's inherited his dad's missing tail, and his sister who's just come in, who's Yummy, and she has got a tail. She's lucky. Now, can I do this bit? Spot on. Now, Morris, mind. Go somewhere else in a minute, my friend. Oh, here comes your sister. Wait, you pulled the strap off. Now, just hold on. It's off anyway. Just ready, here we go. E. So I'm going to lengthen it by turning clockwise and drag it back to retune. Ow! Yummy has this habit sticking her claws into my leg. That's pretty close, actually. Let's go through and tune it once more. Frequencies coming out of there, so much so that this guitar actually can't cope with it, this amp can't cope with it, but can't wait to put it on the big amp. Oh, what have you knocked off? Oh my god, everything's going to go. Morris! I like about getting the intonation right. It's so sharp. When you get the intonation right, you have the notes up here played in an open chord resonate perfectly with the notes down there. Don't forget the right chord. And there's no odd notes kind of hanging about, being slightly out of tune. It's just beautifully intonated. Now I think there's a bit of a lack of sustain on these notes compared to some other guitars, and I think it is because this nut is not really, the slots on here aren't cut properly. They're workable for now, they're not too high or anything, but I think it's robbing it of a bit of the sustain. But in all other respects, this is a beautiful sounding guitar now for my liking. And the treble, the tone settings really work on it as well, which I like. Well, they rustle a bit. And it really comes into its own when it's the front pickup and the middle one. It may be because the height of the strings above the pickup are, because of these knackered things, are really close to the strings, particularly now I've adjusted the action. So, but it's also a nicer sounding pickup than the middle one. But that's a nice, it's got quite a bit of bite from that, you know, what you call it, humbucker, and you know, to put it on a bit of modelling, amp modelling. Yep, there we have it. Sunn Mustang, 1980s, Indian made. It's partly restored in terms of the neck fixing and everything, and a bit of bodywork repairs. But I'm happy with that. That's a really nice guitar. So thanks for sticking it out all this length of time with this guitar, and see you again.